what does today's trade mean for the center field playing time at the major league level?
Well, it certainly opens up quite a bit of playing time. We expect Chas McCormick will fill in for quite a bit of that. In addition, we'll be selecting Jake Myers to the big league roster and trying to get him there in time for the game tomorrow. Between the two of them, I expect that we'll be able to cover most of the playing time, but we might be open to getting creative and sliding other guys in there if need be.
Jake Kaplan.
Yeah, it's a little bit of an unorthodox trade, surprising. I would say to trade your starting center fielder. I guess just how did this come about? What was the rationale behind doing it?
We felt like we still needed one more weapon out there in the bullpen to really solidify things out there. And I felt personally that Chas McCormick had certainly done everything to earn a lot more playing time. I think he's been exceptionally effective in the role he's had so far, and we have a lot of confidence in him to step up and continue to contribute in an everyday role. Jake Myers, we feel like, can bring a lot of athleticism to the team. We feel like it can really help us out and kind of cover a lot of the same things that Myles Straw did. But at the same time, it's incredibly difficult to trade a player like Myles Straw. The skill set that he brings, his ability to change the game on defense and on the bases, it was a difficult decision to make. But this was about the ability to bring in a player like Maton and what he can do for us in the bullpen, and also our confidence in Chas McCormick and Jake Myers to continue the production that we've seen in center field.
All right, McTaggart.
What do you think you've reworked the bullpen pretty dramatically here the last couple of days? What do you think it's going to look like over the next few days? And are you happy with, this is your roster now going into the playoffs?
Well, first and foremost, yes, we're very happy with it. I think we've given Dusty and the rest of the guys quite a few options and quite a few weapons out there that they're going to mix and match and maximize. And we trust them to put those guys in the right spot to get the outs that we need them to get. And we'll see how they perform. And a lot of the decisions about the way that the roster functions from this point will be about seeing what those guys, the new guys, bring to the table, but also the guys that are still here might be thrust into some different roles, and we'll see how they respond, and we'll continue to react to that and change things up as need be.
Brian Smith.
James, there were a ton of just huge names that flew off through the deadline in the last 2 days, especially today. I know there's no easy or right answer right now, but do you believe, from your perspective, that you guys have done enough to set this team up, to set Dusty up, to set all the players you already had on this roster up for hopefully a long, successful run in October?
I do. We coming into this deadline, we felt very, very good about our offense, and we felt very good about our starting pitching. And I think that Ryan Presley has been one of the best relievers in the game, and an all-star at that. We felt like the area that we needed to address was the middle of that bullpen. Certainly there are guys that we have that we brought in because we think that they can get big outs. But I think looking around the roster, that was the area that we felt like needed the most attention and also could get the most attention without sacrificing the long-term goals of the franchise. So we feel a lot better about our ability to bridge from the starting pitching back to Ryan Presley. If our offense continues to perform at the level that it has, if our starting pitching continues to perform at the level that it has, I think we've put together a roster that should be very, very capable of competing for a World Series championship.
Chandler?
James, is it oversimplifying it by saying that you wanted more power from the bottom of your order from that center field spot with Myers and McCormick, given what they've both shown in playing time with how they do hit for power?
Not necessarily. Myles brings a lot of value to the game of baseball, and we've talked about this for quite some time about the defense, the base running. Those are the kind of things that may not get noticed, may not get picked up quite as easily. But if you're paying attention, you see what he does. He saves outs for our pitchers. He gets outs on the bases with his arm from the outfield. He can steal a bag when you need him to. All of these things combine to a very valuable player. Chas McCormick, Jake Myers, they go about it a little bit differently. But we do feel like both of them can provide similar value overall to a Myles Straw. They just might get to it in a slightly different way.
Mark Berman.
James, can you address specifically Phil Matt and what you like about him and what he brings to your bullpen?
Well, first and foremost, just an ability to get swings and miss. And I know I've said this about the other guys that we've brought in, but Maton has gotten a lot of swing and miss and a lot of big outs in that bullpen, and has shown an ability to pound the zone with stuff that results in some big outs. So beyond that, he's a guy who comes very highly recommended. I spoke to him earlier today. He's excited to get out here. We're looking forward to slotting him in there.
Jake Kaplan.
Yeah, Myers is a guy who didn't get a ton of buzz before this year in the prospect circles. Obviously, he's putting up these huge numbers this year, but it's still not a huge sample size. I guess what do you see that makes you confident this is the player he is now?
Well, we're not necessarily looking at his numbers when we make these decisions. And keep in mind also that we missed an entire season last year in player development. So he may have been a guy who last year would have broken out like this and shown the tools to contribute at the major league level. And by this time, maybe the prospect mavens would have picked up on that. But with the missing season, some of these guys have made leaps that we might just not be aware of because we didn't have the games to observe. Jake is a guy who brings elite athleticism to the table. And has continued to develop as a hitter. And we're looking forward to seeing him on both sides of the ball once he gets here.
Taggart.
Speaking of your bullpen, do you have any idea on Baez? I know he's been down there quite a bit now on his timetable and when you could get him.
He's throwing again tonight. If I have time, I might actually swing by Sugarland and see if I can check him out. But after that, I would have to check his calendar, but he should hopefully be here in the early part of August. Certainly don't have a specific date right now, but he is making very good progress.
Jake Kaplan.
Do you have a corresponding roster moves for Myers?
Not yet. We'll announce that once he arrives.
Brandon Scott.
Hey, James, was it a goal at all to get a lefty in this process leading up to the deadline?
It was a goal to make sure that we had options to get out left-handed batters and not necessarily to get a left-handed thrower to do that. And beyond that, once you get to the playoffs, it changes the way that your roster is used. And we feel like we have a roster that should be able to get lefties and righties out. Beyond that, the arms that we got, while they might all be right-handed and maybe they're a little bit better against righties, all of these guys have the stuff to get lefties out.
Jake Kaplan.
Has there been any discussion about trying Tucker in center?
A little bit here and there, but at the same time, Tucker is such a good right fielder that I don't think that we want to mess with a good thing. I think this falls under the if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Mark Berman.
James, before I ask your question, you said Phil's last name is pronounced Maton?
Maton, correct, yes.
Thank you. Appreciate that. How quickly did this come together? Have y'all been talking with him for a while? Did it happen the last second? How would you view it?
No, I think by and large, almost all of these deals don't happen at the last second. This was a construct that we had begun discussing as we approached the deadline, but it was not something that was a rush job by any means.
Chandler.
I asked this completely understanding that you were focused on your team and what it was doing, but when you see what some of the other teams in the American League did today to bolster their rosters, I guess, how do you, I guess kind of the same thing Brian asked earlier, how do you size it up against some of these American League teams that went out and got, some big names and that pulled off some blockbusters?
Well, we can only obviously focus on our own roster and do what we need to do for the Houston Astros to put this team in the best position it can be. And I think we addressed that. I think the moves that we made really shored up an area of our roster that we felt like needed a little bit of attention. And coming out of it, again, I feel really good about our offense. I feel really good about our starting pitching. And now I feel really good about our bullpen. I think we have a very complete team. We weren't focused on getting the biggest names. We were focused on getting the players that we felt like put us in the best position to compete for a World Series championship. sometimes that involves going out and getting some big name players, but the players that we were able to bring in and the roster that we are coming out of this trade deadline with is one that I think we have a lot of confidence in will be hopefully highly competitive and hopefully able to go deep into the postseason.
This will be an obvious one, but I mean, there are still trades leaking out right now. You guys are done.
Unless anybody calls and tells me otherwise, yes. I believe all the moves that we have made have either been announced or have been leaked.
Okay.